Today we're going to make beef stew. I like to keep it simple. What we're going to do is this recipe can be made, is very easy to vary between 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds of meat. Right now what we have here is 3 pounds of meat that's been cut up for stewing. You could either buy stewing meat at the grocery store, or you can cut your own from Top Round, chuck roast, whatever. Normally if you use a tougher cut of meat, it works out better. It has an awful lot of flavor, and this is a slow cooking braising process. But what we're going to do first is we're going to season the meat with some seasoned salt, and then we will dredge this in flour, and we will then brown it. We're going to take some fresh cracked black pepper, and what I like to do with the flour is I don't like to just take it out of the bag. I like to aerate it first. If you look at what the flour is before I aerate it, and you look at what the flour is after it's been aerated, it gives a nicer coating to the meat. Now I'm going to take and flour about half of this meat. In the meantime, I've turned on my saute pan, and I'm going to put the meat in there to brown on all sides. We want to shake this meat off. We don't want an awful lot of flour on it. We just want it to be dusted. So I'm shaking off some of this flour. And while that pan is heating up, I'm going to flour the rest of the meat. Confusing my camera operator, who thought I was going to do something else. Just toss this. This was a half a cup of flour. I don't know if I mentioned that. And we'll just toss this in our pan. Now while I'm browning this, I've also taken 5 cups, because of the quantity of beef, 5 cups of beef broth, 2 bay leaves, and I'm bringing it to a boil. And we're going to take and put our beef in this pan. We don't want to crowd the beef, because I'm sure you've heard me say this before. We're trying to brown the meat and not boil it. We're going to try and brown this on all sides. And then the meat can be put in a roasting pan, a hotel pan, a glass roaster. This gives us a nice amount of space in between the pieces of meat. In this pan I put 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and we're going to let this brown for a couple of minutes. Okay, the meat is nicely browned on the one side. We're going to turn it over. You want to brown all sides of the meat. And the caramelizing of the meat is going to add a little more flavor to the beef stew. It takes a little bit of time to do this, but it's well worth it in the end. If you make a large quantity of stew, you can freeze half of it for a later date. Okay, our meat is browned very nicely. Outside, we're going to transfer this to our roasting pan, and we will brown the rest of our meat. And then we're going to add our beef stock. This is the last of the beef. It's been browned. Taking it off, putting it in our roasting pan. Now I like to cook the beef because this is tough, and we want our stew meat to be really, really tender, I'm going to take our hot beef broth with the bay leaves, pour this over our beef cubes. You notice it doesn't completely cover the beef. We want it to cover it, about halfway or so. We're going to take some aluminum foil for a cover. This can also be done in a Dutch oven on the top of the stove and covered. We're going to cook this for about 1 hour. And then we will add our vegetables. Okay, I have a preheated oven to 350 degrees. We're going to put our beef cubes in there for about 1 hour. And then we will add our vegetables. So I'll set our timer for 1 hour. And there we go. Beef stew is kind of a flexible thing. While we're waiting for the beef to cook, I've assembled some vegetables. We're going to use carrots, approximately 1.5 pounds, of onions, which are going to be chopped up, 3 pounds of potatoes, and 1 cup of frozen peas. Now, mixed vegetables could be used, celery could be used, so you have like with your mirepoix onions, carrots and celery, which gives an awful lot of flavor. You can use some tomato paste in it. You can use some diced tomatoes. You can use cherry tomatoes. You can use lima beans. You can get 5-6 way mixed vegetables. Whatever you want, and it can be served like a soup. When it's done, we will thicken the sauce up with a slurry of flour and beef broth. And it could be served over noodles or just served by itself. So while that's cooking in the oven, I'm going to prepare the vegetables and we'll show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, 1 hour has elapsed. We're going to pull out our beef cubes that have been cooking for 1 hour. We're going to unwrap our pan from the far side so that we don't get a blast of steam in our face. And you can see that the cubes are cooking very, very nicely. We're going to add our vegetables now. We have 1.5 pounds of carrots. We have 1.5 pounds of sliced onions. And we put this in water so that the potatoes would not turn black. And we have 3 pounds of potatoes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little salt and pepper on the potatoes and carrots, and I'm going to mix things up. I also have here 1 cup of peas. I kind of like the peas. You can use mixed vegetables, lima beans, whatever in your beef stew, and a little bit of black pepper, and a little bit of, what I'm using is a Himalayan pink salt. And I'm going to mix everything up. I'm going to seal this back up and cook it until it's tender. It has to be about another hour. It's been about 2 hours and 40 minutes. We've just pulled everything out of the oven. We did stir them halfway through to make sure that everything was covered. we're going to take and remove all the solids out of the pan, and then we're going to thicken the beef stock with a slurry. Everything seems to be looking really nice. Almost lost a little piece of the potato there. I've definitely made a lot. Really a nice dish on a cold winter night for a party. And okay, we're going to strain the juices into a saucepan. Put the peas in with our solids. We're going to take this and put this on the stove, turn this up to bring it to a boil, and we will take some of this stock about 12 ounces, put it into a cup with a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm going to mix it together to make a slurry, and then we're going to thicken this once it comes to a boil. While we were cooking the stew in the oven, a lot of some of the broth had evaporated, so I added 1 more cup of broth. Now I'm adding the slurry. We're going to bring this up just to thicken it slightly. Let this come to a boil. I removed the bay leaves from the stew. And let's see how this thickens as comes back to a boil. And once it comes back to a boil, we'll let it boil for 1 minute before we pour it back over the stew. We don't want this to thicken too much, but we want the sauce to have a nice little bit of a body for the stew. Now it's coming to a boil. I'm going to take a pan and see what the thickness is of it. I'd like just a little bit thicker. And pour just a little bit more of the slurry in. And this will come back up to a boil. This is just starting to boil around the edges. We'll bring this up to a rolling boil. Keep giving a little bit of a whisk. Take our spoon to see where we're at. Just coating the spoon and not running. Give it a little bit of a taste. Oh. That is so good. It's picked up all of the flavor from the ground beef. And we're just going to let that boil for a minute. Okay, this is boiled for about a minute. And you can see it's thickened up very nicely. Coats the back of the spoon. We're going to turn off the heat now. And we're going to pour this over our beef stew. And we put that in a large serving bowl. And we'll portion that out. I'm going to do it over some extra wide buttered egg noodles. There you have a beef stew over buttered noodles with carrots, onions, potatoes, and peas. And there you have it. Enjoy.